We have updated our Dynasty rankings over on the site, and now it's time to talk about them in front of you on this video. We're going to go through our top, I think, 50 or 51 receivers? 50 receivers for you in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Do us a huge favor. If you play Dynasty, make sure you drop a like. Make sure you're subscribed. Let's get into this, and I'll start with the S tier. This is pretty easy. It's pretty self-explanatory. Justin Jefferson has been in the S tier, will be in the S tier, will probably retire and still be in the S tier. Honestly, I'd still probably want him on my Dynasty team. He'll find a way to score me points somehow. But he's going to be up here with Jamar Chase. This is a throwback from 2 years ago. Last year in our wide receiver rankings, we really were putting Chase in the A tier because we're like, okay, it's been a couple years since Chase did it. Well, he's doing it. So now you're looking at Jamar Chase. He's still under 25 years old. Right now in the season, he's, the wide receiver 1. He's the number 2 overall player. And when you're looking at Justin Jefferson, the last couple weeks have been a little bit shakier, but he's still the wide receiver 3. So it doesn't really matter. And so both of these guys are the two most ideal candidates from a wide receiver standpoint. If you are drafting a wide receiver and building your team around them, whether that's in 1 QB or whether it's in Superflex, these are the two guys that we would prefer over this next tier guys in the A tier.
Yep. So the A tier is going to be a little bit bigger. And again, you can order these however you want. We do not care. I just want to talk really, honestly, positively about every single one of these players, because these guys are breathing down JJ and Jamar Chase's neck for the next couple of years. Every single one of these guys, they've been in the S tier. Guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and CeeDee Lamb have been in the S tier. If you wanted them to remain in the S tier, we wouldn't really have an issue with it because they're so elite and they have the contract insulation. With Amon-Ra and with CD specifically, Amon-Ra obviously just went nuts this last week. He had 38 points against Jacksonville, actually boosted him up to wide receiver 2 on the season. But when you're looking at his production overall, this year, it's been a little bit underwhelming. He's been very consistent and had a very high floor, but not like insane every single week. Obviously, we're splitting hairs here because he's still a top 6 wide receiver objectively, but he's compared to 2023. It's been a little more hit or miss so far. He's going to be really good rest of the season, though. And then CeeDee Lamb, his ceiling is a little bit capped now with Dak Prescott out of the lineup. And obviously, there's a lot of questions with Dallas long term. So he's going to be at the top of the C tier here as well. Obviously, Malik Neighbors, I haven't talked about. Malik Neighbors, I definitely haven't talked about. But with Malik, he's technically at the top of this A tier, and I think the biggest reason is his target volume has been ridiculous, and he's managed to be productive. Actually, the wide receiver 13 on the year, even though he's missed 2 games due to a concussion and just came off a bye. This guy every single week, 7, 8, 12, 15, 8, 13, 11, 10 targets. You give this guy a halfway competent quarterback in the NFL, and he is going to go nuts. He's got to stay healthy. He's been struggling with injuries even outside of the concussion. Now he's got I think an issue with the groin this week, but Malik Neighbors, dude, he has been everything that you expected and more by far. Other guys in this tier, Puka Nacua just continues to show how dominant he is coming off that injury, which was unfortunate, sidelined him for a third of the season. He likes boxing and he, missed a game due to that as well. But even with Cooper Kupp dropping 25 points in a game, Puka can drop another 25 to 28 points in the same game. This guy is elite, and if you didn't believe it last year and you had questions about it then and thought it wouldn't carry on or carry over to the next however long he's able to do, it's going to continue. He is one of the premier elite wide receiver assets that you want in Dynasty. Nico Collins, I think his connection with CJ Stroud is special. The contract insulates his value long term. He has solidified himself in that offense as the top option objectively. He's a great downfield threat. He's shown ability to be consistent in the short to intermediate game as well. He's kind of an all-around asset, which I didn't expect him to be this year, but his target volume, we said his target volume would have to be the thing that goes up. It has gone up on a per game basis. He's got to stay healthy as well, but man, he's looked amazing on the field. Marvin Harrison Jr., we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt and keep him in this tier because he is Kyler Murray's top option. He has shown in significant flashes that he can be an elite level premier wide receiver. The investment, the situation overall, the passing volume that Kyler Murray is going to continue to provide years to come, I think sets up Marv to be successful long term.
All right, let's jump now and talk about the B tier. This is going to be a tier with 4 guys in it. We'll start with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown had a really good start to the year, 22 and 23 points in week 1 and 6. Obviously, he missed weeks 2, 3, and 4 there. The problem is really since then, he had his 19-point game within 13, 5, 15, and 11. He's really not been the elite productive wide receiver that we want to see. But he is still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He is still probably a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. And for that reason, for the reason he's going to be, in the Eagles offense, for the reason that he is going to be the number 1 option, and that he is that talented, I think from a dynasty standpoint, you're still putting him in the same tier as these guys here. Drake London is the wide receiver 6 on the season. Nux.
Who would have thought?
Which, honestly, his dynasty value hasn't gone up at all. You clearly look at his production this year, and you notice that when he scores touchdowns, he really is doing a lot better than when he doesn't. And you might say, well, go figure. Well, I mean, you're looking at the games without touchdowns, 9, 17, 7, 12, and 3. I'm saying, Drake London, in terms of, why is he the wide receiver 6? It's because he has had 6 touchdowns this year so far. So the reason I'm not worried about that with Drake London is because 9, 12, 13, 10, 8, 6, 2, 13, and 7 targets. The target volume is absolutely there. Not to mention the advanced analytics are there. When you're looking at some of his advanced analytics from opportunity standpoint, he's 5th in the league in targets.
3rd in red zone targets.
He's 3rd in red zone targets. He's also 3rd in touchdowns, like I mentioned. So that's something to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. But obviously playing in a great situation there in Atlanta. You can wonder how long Kirk Cousins is going to start, and it's like, okay, boo-hoo, because Michael Penix is right behind him. And Michael Penix can support Drake London as a wide receiver 1 as well. And so he's got some long-term insulation. Garrett Wilson, on the flip side of that, wide receiver 5 in full-point PPR leagues this year. Absolute heck yeah. Because, again, even though he's had a last couple games where we didn't really see a ton from him, under 10 points in both of his last 2 games, it doesn't really matter because he has gotten an absurd amount of targets this season, including a game where he had 23 targets. He has 108 targets on the year.
That's got to be number 1,
and the difference, right? I think it is, you can check me, the difference between last year and this year's last year and the entire year, he had 3 touchdowns. This year he had 5. And that's what competent quarterback play does for you. Now, again, we've seen Garrett Wilson's floor with a bad quarterback, and I think that's the worst case scenario for Garrett Wilson in terms of what does his future look like. You do have Garrett Wilson with a murky quarterback situation there. I don't know how long the Jets are going to try to roll with Rodgers. So you got to hope they draft somebody that really can support.
He's
number
1st
1
in targets.
Yeah. And then the next guy we're going to talk about here, the last guy in this tier, is going to be Brian Thomas Jr., who I had to sit here and listen to Nathan dog and hate and crap on Brian Thomas Jr. in front of the cameras, in front of all of you. And look,
I didn't dog and
now,
crap on him.
Here we are, week 12, bye week, and he's still a wide receiver 1. So, I mean, this is what happens.
Even though you're advocating to sell him in every possible team.
That doesn't mean he's not good. That doesn't mean he's not good.
I never said he wasn't good.
You said he sucked. You said you didn't like him. You said he was not talented. Yeah.
No, I did not.
I'm pretty sure you did.
It's all about the respective price.
Can somebody make AI of Nathan saying
that? It's about the respective price.
No, it wasn't about the respective price. Then you were refusing to even rank him this high. You've come around a little bit. Admit you've come around a little bit.
He looks really good.
Yes, he won't do it. So
I said he looked really good then too.
All right. So obviously only 22 years old. He's going to be playing with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence supported him as a wide receiver 1 through the first 8 games of the season.
I would anticipate a little bit of a value jump in the offseason too when they kind of
you think so?
Figure out a new head coaching situation there and what goes on.
So you think the dip is going to come earlier? Because I think there's a dip no matter what.
Because
here's the thing. So, I don't think he's going to produce from weeks 13 to 18.
I think the dip is already happening.
Okay.
The dip will continue to happen as the season progresses, which was one of my concerns, and then I thought he would go back up in value as they fire Doug Peterson.
It's a baby dip so far. I think he dips more than this.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then once we get to the offseason, he's probably going to see a spike once they clear out the organization and get a new head coach.
So again, Brian Thomas Jr. was a guy that I drafted a ton of. We were telling people on Team Blueprints to draft a lot of him.
Was he your most drafted rookie?
He honestly,
I think it was him and Bo Nix. I don't know which one for me, but
Keon Coleman and then Brock Bowers was my most drafted one. I had Brock Bowers in I think 3 out of 8 leagues.
I don't think I was just drafting at the 106 very much. I was either
No, I got Brock Bowers at the 201 in 2 leagues.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, honestly, it's close to where we had him ranked. But either way,
BTJ was just staring us in the face at the 111, and
and we took a lot of them. So, and again, I think if you were around last year, you probably had success in your rookie draft as well. We do have our rookie draft guide version 1 available. You get that for free, and you get a team blueprint for free, which is a comprehensive breakdown of your dynasty team done personally by Nathan and I. We will break down your dynasty team, grade out your positions, tell you what your team archetype is, which will determine your strategy for building your dynasty team. And then we will give you your 3-year outlook, which is really important when you are building your dynasty team. You get that for free. You get the rookie draft guide. You get the My Teams. You get the trade calculator. You get the dynasty rankings that are all on here. You get the full list and more at flockfantasy.com/domain. Make sure you use code domain when you sign up to unlock the rookie draft guide and the blueprint. You have to use code domain and choose the annual MotherFlocker tier to unlock it all. But at the top of this next year, I just want to take a second and give us a little round of applause here, because I think this shows that we're capable of anything. This shows that we're capable of anything, because we both have him in the same spot, and he deserves it at this point.
He absolutely deserves it. I have never in my life spoken so highly of George Pickens as I am right now, and am about to, because I can't lie, dude. Watched a lot of Steelers football this year, because I don't know why.
They're on primetime a ton,
on primetime a lot. But Pickens has looked really good. And he still is the Pickens, from a skill set perspective, he still kind of is the Pickens that I thought he was. Like, when you look at his advanced metrics, right, his target separation, he's 79th in the league. He's not a premier route runner. His route win rate is 67th in the league.
Yeah.
His total route wins are like 36 in the league. He's on the field a lot, but again, he's 13th in the league in targets. He's actually, this is a big part of it. His catchable target rate, not even that high, and he's still pretty productive. And his catchable target rate, I would bet you
70%.
It's 71%.
That's really good for the targets he's getting.
Yes.
And that's the thing.
Yes.
I will say this.
And that's a lot higher than it was even previously with Fields, with anyone that was playing with Pickens throwing him the ball before. Like, Russell Wilson is getting George Pickens the ball, and he's getting George Pickens the ball consistently. And this is kind of what's flipped me on Pickens' outlook in his situation as dynasty value. Since Russ came in, not even since Russ came in, I mean, since week 4, 11, 7, 8, 9, 5, 7, 12, and 7 targets. That is a floor of 7 targets per game since week 4. Now you look at the red zone targets, and we've talked about this with London before. He is 5th in the league right now in red zone targets with 14, but he only has 2 touchdowns on the year. So you factor into the equation that touchdowns are volatile. He's on the not so positive side of that volatility, and he's still producing, and he's still wide receiver 13 or 14 on the year in total points.
Yes.
So in points per game, it's not as positive, right? Only 13 points per game right now. That is on an upward trend, or an upward trajectory since Russ came into that offense. Between the touchdowns and the red zone opportunity, he's getting that opportunity, which shows you what his upside can be on a weekly basis. But also the fact that he's still a high-end wide receiver too, without all of those touchdowns, shows you that he has a pretty decent floor as well when he has competent quarterback play. Russell Wilson, big question mark in Pittsburgh long term. He's probably going to win comeback player of the year, by the way.
Probably.
And aside from that, long term, I think Pittsburgh's probably going to have a better answer than they tried with Kenny Pickett. That's just going to be my prediction. But again, where else do you want George Pickens to be with what he's doing right now? Like, the dude's going to be on pace for well over 1,000 yards this year. He's already sniffing 800 yards 11 games into the season. He has 6 games left. I mean, he's going to get close to 1,200 yards.
At this point,
he might exceed that.
At this point, I mean, look into my eyes, camera. Look into my eyes.
Camera.
Because a lot of people, probably the most outrageous thing I hear about when people want to trash us, which we deserve to be trashed a lot, is that we don't admit when we're wrong. Look, my bad. I did not think he would get this target level. I was wrong about this, because I did not think this amount of targets for George Pickens was possible. Because it is, now when you get a higher volume of targets for the type of player he is, he can be fantasy productive at a high level. I was wrong about that, so my bad. I'm sorry.
And in fairness too, like, a lot of George Pickens' success has been directly tied to Russell Wilson, and I think the question marks surrounding Russell Wilson were merited, but also if you bought low on Pickens and you had faith in that situation being a positive for him, kudos to you, because he has skyrocketed up boards. We did not tell you to do that. And I mean, I've been the biggest Pickens hater forever, and
you have.
We're not even through an entire season and haven't gotten a full sample size. He still will be boom bust. He had an 8-point game against Cleveland. That's okay, though. He still had 7 targets. That's going to happen with wide receivers priced in this range. 5 minutes of time.
I was going to say
spent on George Pickens. He deserves it, though. He's been one of the stars of the wide receiver show this year. Zay Flowers is also going to be in this tier. We've talked about Zay Flowers Flowers significantly on the show. We really like his price still. He is, I mean, talk about the definition of hit or miss every single week. That's just going to be what happens for the wide receivers in Baltimore's situation. But he is wide receiver 8 on the year. And games of 10, 11, 12, 9, and 12 targets, games of 6, 6, 6, 1, 2, and 4 targets. So kind of all over the place. He is going to be a lot more game plan dependent every single week. But the more we dive into his efficiency metrics, I want to see how he finishes out the rest of this season for me to have a final full take on where I think he should ultimately be priced. We have him here. I think he deserves it. Again, he's a wide receiver 1 on the season. He's been really solid. Rashee Rice, we're huge Rashee Rice fans. If you're a rebuild or a reload, go invest in him now because he's guaranteed an increase in value. The dude was going to finish as a top 6 wide receiver this year if he didn't tear his ACL. PCL, I'm sorry, my bad. He's still out for the season. Jaden Reed, again, very similar to Zay Flowers, almost game plan dependent, what his production is going to be like and his outlook. Love how he's used in the run game. He has some nice upside and opportunity there. Avery and I are really on the same page with his ranking, both rank him at 17th overall. I think he's going to stay here and he's going to maintain that value, even if he kind of finishes the season disappointing because he's shown so many good flashes as a second year. DK, you know exactly what DK is. He's doing the exact same thing this year as he does every single year. And now JSN is breathing down his neck as well, who I skipped over, but JSN is also in this tier, and he's shown a lot of really solid flashes since we last talked about him.
Upside too.
Upside as well. The target volume's been great, so that's really promising for him. We're optimistic and excited to look at his advanced metrics as well and really dive deep into that in the offseason. T. Higgins, guaranteed to get a big contract in the offseason, probably with another team, and has a chance to be a wide receiver 1. He's got to stay freaking healthy. He'd be a tier above this if he doesn't miss 4 games a year.
Right.
And then Rome Odunze will be at the end of this tier. You just know that he's going to maintain his value so well. He is the long-term number 1 option for Caleb Williams, and he's shown really great talent flashes this year. Not a ton of production, though, so that's going to have to follow in year 2.
Let's jump down to the D's tier here, and we'll start with Chris Olave. And speaking of D's concussions are concerning me.
They are.
And look, when Olave's been in this year, he's had 2 games with double-digit targets. But in terms of double-digit fantasy production, he's had 4 games out of the 7 or 8 he played. Look, with Olave, we're just looking at, he was the wide receiver 16 last year, which was great. But talk
about another organization that's cleaning house, though. They're probably going to be in the market for a quarterback in next year's class. And maybe that can prop up Chris Olave's value a little bit. I guess that's the only hope you have because Derek Carr ain't going to be the quarterback there next year. Right. Yeah. They're clearing out that entire organization.
Josh Downs is the next guy on this list. And another bump. Josh Downs was a guy that, his value fluctuated in the offseason, and we really did hit it every time.
We kind of nailed it
At the end of last season, we said to sell him. And then we said to buy him after first we said to buy, and then we said to sell, and then we said to buy again, and the buy came in July, and since July he has increased in value in Dynasty 2-fold.
Doubled. Yeah.
So if you have Josh Downs on your team, you're feeling really good about it. I have a lot of Josh Downs. Josh Downs was one of my favorite wide receiver prospects in that class, and so
the advanced metrics look phenomenal on him.
They're really, really good. And so with Downs, it was, if you sold, I'm very sorry you sold. You shouldn't have sold, but he's the man. Devonta Smith, he's moved down a little bit here. He's the wide receiver 27 on the year. He's been okay this year, but he has, a floor of 3-4 points.
His floor is
it's pretty low at this point.
It's Zay Flowers level.
It is, and it's kind of a killer.
Maybe even worse.
But we'll continue to monitor him. It's less of a great situation for him as it was. Being the wide receiver 2 there was not as good as it was a year and a half ago even. So Ladd McConkey, wide receiver 18 on the year. He's been really good. The target volume really hasn't been consistent. He's been consistent at 6 or 7 targets. I'd like to see him get a few more targets, but he does have 4 touchdowns in the year, and that's helping prop up his value a little bit, and you do have to keep that in mind. Yep. Brandon Ayuk, obviously Ayuk wasn't great at all before he got injured. I'm not super worried about this. Hopefully next year he actually decides to go through training camp, but he has a huge contract. So in Dynasty, he's a pretty safe asset, and he's one that we're telling a lot of rebuilds to go buy no matter what. Yep. Terry McLaurin, one of the biggest risers in our rankings. And we always knew Terry was really, really good. He was always just stuck with mediocre quarterback play. Now he's the wide receiver 7 because he has Jaden Daniels, a rookie quarterback. And Jaden Daniels is only going to get better. Terry McLaurin has only gotten better. Terry McLaurin doesn't even really, he has had games recently where it just seems like he's not been as involved. 3 targets and 2 targets in weeks 9 and 11 respectively. I'm not particularly concerned about that yet. He does have 6 touchdowns on the year, which is already second most in his career of any season. but he deserves the bump up in my opinion for sure.
He does. He is pushing 30. He will be by the end of this year, so that'll cap his value ceiling in Dynasty. But man, he's been great.
A guy that's already 30 is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek, honestly, has been really disappointing for me this year. Obviously, the Tua injury was something, but even when Tua has been on the field this year, Tyreek has just not shown the consistency that Tyreek Hill has had in the past. And so maybe we are getting to the point now where the old Tyreek Hill is going to finally kind of fall off, but he's going to be here in this middle tier as well. Obviously, still has a ton of upside.
I mean, he got extended too right before the season.
Yeah, so like you also have that to lean on for his value, and then DJ Moore. Look, DJ Moore, obviously he had one of his better games of the season in Week 11 in his first game without Shane Waldron. Here's what you need to understand. Shane Waldron kills wide receivers, destroys them,
He kills offenses, period.
He kills organizations.
Tried to murder Caleb Williams.
But DJ Moore, we're hoping, he's on a big deal, guys. He is on a big deal. He's still honestly a good value in Dynasty, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so,
he is.
He's going to be the last guy in this tier.
Yep. F tier is going to start with Tank Dell. There's a lot of second options in this tier and a couple of old guys at the tail end as well. But Tank Dell, I think we know exactly what he is at this point, and I will give our community a lot of credit here. They've kind of kept me back from ranking him lower than I originally wanted to, because he did have the off-the-field issues. He was literally shot in the offseason. It took a few months for him to rehab from that. I think his off-season training program was a little bit different than what it would have been normally. And then you obviously have Diggs coming into that offense, who will no longer be on that team most likely next season. And if he is, he's probably going to be a non-factor, being 31 years old, coming off an ACL tear. History says that Diggs is not going to come back very well. So Tank Dell, like long-term, he is going to be that second option for Nico Collins. And you've seen what he's been able to do in that situation CJ Stroud's rookie year, when it was just Nico and it was just Tank Dell with Noah Brown as their third option there. He was ultra productive. I still think that's in the cards for Tank Dell, and I think a third-year comeback could be in the cards for him next season. Even he still has a chance to kind of be a little more productive at the end of this year. The last third of this season, we'll see what he can do, but we're going to keep him in this range, still have hope that he's a solid second wide receiver option in that offense. Jordan Addison has been falling down on rankings. He may fall down even more, honestly, because he's been so touchdown dependent, even more than he was last year. Outside of the touchdown games, he's done absolutely nothing. Even with the touchdown games, his ceiling has been kind of Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and potentially a running back that they draft next year with JJ McCarthy coming in. There's just not a lot of room, not a lot of volume left for Jordan Addison. Keon Coleman is a guy that's on the rise for us. His advanced metrics aren't going to show you at least anything super special right out the gate, but once Amari Cooper came into that offense, you saw an immediate jump in production and opportunity for Keon Coleman. It kind of opened up the field for him. He was able to showcase his skill set and his ceiling, honestly, with Josh Allen. I think there's something there, and I think he could build on that. His second year, we knew that he was a project wide receiver to begin with, so Keon Coleman might be one of the second-year wide receivers next year that I have the most eyes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're going to be following him big time.
How many eyes do you have?
More than two when it comes to Keon Coleman.
That's interesting.
It's
kind of sus.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Jalen Waddle, this might be too low for people, might be too high for others. Jalen Waddle has been straight up unstartable this year. Has he even had a game this year over 10 points? His first game, week 1 against Jacksonville, he had 16 points. The dude has, look at his targets, 5'4", 5'6", 8'2", 6'2", 6'3". He only has 400 receiving yards on the year. Since his rookie year, it has been nothing but downhill. You can say that Tyreek Hill is not getting any younger. I understand. I get that. That's literally the only reason that his value's propped up to this. Otherwise, he would
Tyreek Hill's been
even
bad
further
this
down.
year.
Tyreek Hill's been bad. There's no reason that Jalen Waddle shouldn't have been able to produce and shouldn't be producing right now with Tua back healthy. He has just not been good. So, at this point, big contracts, but Tyreek has that extension as well. So he's kind of tied to Tyreek for the next 3 years. By the time Tyreek Hill's out of the league, Waddle's going to be pushing 30. So not a lot of hope for him right now. Deebo Samuel is just kind of an older veteran, not super productive this year. The Niners are struggling overall. He might not be on the Niners next year. Time will tell. They're going to have to clear up some cap space to pay Purdy sooner rather than later. We'll see what happens with him, but he's on a downward trajectory. Mike Evans, very, very consistent. He'll probably stay in this range for another year because of his contract tied to Baker Mayfield. As long as he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be fine. You're going to see Mike Evans in this range for a while.
G2 here. Xavier Worthy is a wide receiver 44 in the year in PPR leagues. He's gotten 8 targets at most. He's had 2 games with 8 targets. That's the most he's gotten. And outside of that, it's really been just more like 3 or 4 targets a game. So until you see consistent target volume, and I don't think you will, I think he's more of a gadget player, and I honestly don't think that he's going to be somebody you're going to want in your fantasy lineups consistently, unless it's like a best ball league or something like that. Jameson Williams, kind of the same thing. Started the season red hot. He's a wide receiver 36. He was obviously suspended again, but then reinstated essentially. So with JMO, it looked like we were really wrong about him. Now it looks like, we may have not been wrong. He obviously played well against Jacksonville, but he's Barry Boomer bust. Go figure. Chris Godwin.
And averaging about 4 to 5 targets.
Well, yeah, it ended up, water found its level after those first 2 games. I mean, you really didn't see. First 2 games, 9 and 11 targets. Since then, he's not had a game of over 6 targets. So, in fact, he had 9 and 11 targets. In the next 4 games combined, he had 10 targets. So, that tells you all you need to know. It's pretty volatile. Chris Godwin, look, obviously Chris Godwin was the wide receiver, like a top 5 wide receiver before he got hurt. The problem is an injury to Chris Godwin at that age is really unfortunate. And I do think you have to be careful with his dynasty value.
I still can't believe there wasn't any structural damage.
I know.
It's wild.
Leggett, I think the main thing with Leggett is the flashes you've seen, right? You've seen him when he has touchdown games, he's getting 13, 14 points in full point PPR leagues. But the main thing there is you're hoping and praying that they get a competent quarterback in Carolina, because he has shown flashes of being a pretty good fantasy asset. So Cedric Tillman, look, I don't know. Cedric Tillman, I think for the last 2 games now,
come back down to earth.
He's come back down to earth, 7 points and 2 points after his 3-game insane stretch. Maybe that was his Christian Watson stretch. Who knows? But it's definitely worth ranking him up here, as well as Khalil Shakir. Look, Khalil Shakir, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated players. I have him a little bit higher than Nathan. He is the wide receiver 19
4 spots
right now. No, I mean, it's a big gap between us. We are way
38 to 42.
No, it's way.
That's
big.
actually closer than I would have thought.
No. I like Shakir. He's a top 20 wide receiver right now in full point PPR leagues. He's tied to Josh Allen. He's still pretty young. He's under 25 years old. I'm a big fan. And then Cooper Kupp. The thing with Cooper Kupp is he is 1 millisecond away from having no value in Dynasty. Matt Stafford retires, he's probably retiring too. He gets hurt, he's losing all of his value. Stephon Diggs, yes, he's a good example. So we love Cooper Kupp, but honestly, you got to be careful with him. So
H tier at the top. You can have an argument for Darnell Mooney to be in the G tier. I wouldn't argue it. The dude, through the first 2/3 of the season, was a wide receiver 1. Actually, he's still wide receiver 9 on the year, even after, he's on bye this week. So he'll end up as a wide receiver 2. He's looked really, really great. Don't know where he's going to be long term. Hopefully, he stays with Atlanta and Kirk Cousins. That would be great. We'll see what he can do and maintain this consistency. Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams, they're kind of right there together. We don't know where they're going to be long term. They're kind of it looks like they may have lost a step this year. They haven't been as consistent, not commanding a lot of target volume. They're just older and they're falling down our rankings. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. Michael Pittman has been a big disappointment this year. Struggled with a back injury that he's playing through right now. They thought about putting him on IR. They ended up not. Anthony Richardson has really kind of murdered his potential upside and opportunity, and it's all gone to Josh Downs. Honestly, this is less about the situation and more about Josh Downs kind of just overtaking Michael Pittman and being more productive. So kudos to him. Ricky Pearsall, don't really know what to do with him right now. He'll move up our rankings probably, especially if Debo and a couple other people in that offense are out the door next year. He's looked okay when he's been given opportunity this season after all the off the field stuff. Cortland Sutton is older, but he's been very productive with Bo Nix as the only option there in Denver. Calvin Ridley as well has shown flashes of competency in an incompetent offense with an incompetent quarterback. Demario Douglas, very limited, but he is a slot wide receiver that has shown some nice upside with Drake May this season. So we'll see if he can build off of that. And then A.D. Mitchell is a pure upside shot. He's shown some good stuff this year as well, given the opportunity when Michael Pittman was out for a game and whatnot. So we'll see if he can build off of that.
So there you go, our complete wide receiver rankings. We appreciate you guys. Flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain. Get a free blueprint. Appreciate you guys so much. We'll see you later.